No intro, just a rant. Read a Sportsnet article today by Michael Grange in which he talked about how Masai Ujiri still believes in this roster more than Nick Nurse did, more than Ime Udoka did. That Masai Ujiri believes in these guys. Comes on the heels of a interview with Chris Boucher in which he talks about the value of that belief. Talked about how Masai Ujiri believed in him when other people didn't, and how time and time again he could have tossed him away, and he didn't. When he struggled, he gave him chances. I am the byproduct of someone giving someone a chance who did not deserve it. I am someone who I believe was overlooked a lot in my youth. On the surface, a troubled kid, angry, coming from the wrong background, all sorts of issues. Took some special people to see something in me, and it empowered me, and it made me believe, and it has given me a lifetime of perspective on the human element of growth and performance. It has shown me that there is a serious, intangible quality to great people in great organizations. I don't know how Masai Ujiri is so good at understanding people, but you believe that a person, the same guy who found Fred VanVleet in the undrafted heap, met him, shook his hand, looked him in the eye, and said, "This is a special man. This guy is more than he appears to be at the surface. An undersized, older prospect. He saw in him something. He saw that same thing in Jakob Poeltl, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby. And he created a culture with culture setters, guys like DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry. He spotted Chris Boucher on the heels of just flaming out with the Warriors, an older guy, not an obvious guy. How many Chris Bouchers are walking around the NBA, sitting at the end of the roster? How many guys, undersized, thin, can't put on weight? How did he see what Chris Boucher would become? Masai Ujiri sees the person. He understands people. Now, I've spent a great deal of time absolutely being critical of this team this year and how they played. It was very interesting to note Chris Boucher saying today, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, by all means, go check out his podcast, and when he said, the media called us selfish, and it kind of got to us. The media didn't call them selfish. I did. I don't remember people talking about the culture around the Raptors in October. I did. I don't remember people calling Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam stat patters. I did that. Because I have learned to look at people, and I have learned a great deal following this team and listening to Masai Ujiri. I have implemented a great deal of what he's done with Africa basketball and with the Toronto Raptors, the culture building element, into things that I do in my own life. It's not easy. I'm not a special person like Masai Ujiri. I don't think I have that special gift that he has for seeing people for what they can be, not what they are. Most people don't look that deeply. Most people don't understand the essence of a human being. What you see are arms and legs that jump and dribble a basketball. What he sees is what drives the human being. Terrence Davis, Chris Boucher, Justin Champagnie, Fred VanVleet. Undrafted. Do you know that there are teams out there that don't have a single guy who worked out in the undrafted heap? How does Masai Ujiri keep finding these guys? Because there is more to what makes a man than how well he shoots a jump shot. Masai Ujiri believes in the roster that he has assembled, and he accurately believes that the culture that was once Toronto basketball, what it meant to be a Raptor, hard work, team first, this is gone. It's been gone for a while, and it really started to rear its head this year. There were seeds of it last year too. And those of you who are very perceptive, who have watched this team, you started to feel it, right? You started to feel it around the All-Star break last year. Fred VanVleet kind of going off for his All-Star game, bid. Culture is a weird thing. You don't just wipe it away in 1 year. It takes a while to erode. I think it's fair to be critical of the moves that Masai Ujiri has made, but don't forget who he is. There might be 2 general managers in the entire league that you could realistically make a case that you'd be a little bit happier or a little bit more secure with them handling a turbulent, tumultuous, difficult offseason than him. Why do I say this? Because when people show you who they are, believe them. Masai Ujiri has proven over and over that he gets it. He gets it. And to those people saying, Otto Porter didn't work out, did you watch Otto Porter? It's exactly what this team needed. Ron Harper Jr. In a couple of years, we'll talk about Ron Harper Jr. and we'll put him right in that same undrafted pile of, players that he spotted, saw something special in. This is a team that won a championship. If I told you when Masai Ujiri signed on that you win a championship in 8 years, I think he would have taken that. He correctly identified, albeit after some time, that Dwayne Casey was not the right man for the job. He has once again correctly identified, unpopular move among this fan base. It seems like a lot of people are split whether Nick Nurse was a problem. I absolutely believe he was a problem, and I'm very happy that Masai Ujiri did not wait on it. Some people look at this roster and they don't see talent. They don't see what the hell the big deal is. They see a failed roster. They don't see upside. They don't see the youth. But as someone who deeply, and I do mean deeply, believes in some of these young players on this team and sees their upside, who's been watching basketball for 25 years, man, I know a lemon when I see it. Whether it works out or not, whether the Raptors make the playoffs next year or not, I am confident, extremely confident, that Masai Ujiri will be himself. That he will spot and identify the people who are willing to rebuild this culture. You do not replace a Kyle Lowry with a Fred VanVleet and expect that there will be no slippage and no drop-off. Masai Ujiri's biggest weakness, in my opinion, is he trusts people too much. In my opinion, he trusts people that when they tell him, I'm going to put in the work, he believes them. That he might be a little bit too committed to his own creations. That he might just have a little bit too much loyalty. Maybe he feels too much. I find very often in life that the things that make us great, when you look at it on the flip side, they can also be the things that are our biggest weaknesses. Caring too much is not a weakness until it is. I think a lot of people look at players, you talk to GMs, you listen to these people talk. It doesn't seem like they have any consideration for the human element of being an athlete. But it does carry. It does matter. Because when you tell a guy that he was traded, DeMar DeRozan controversy notwithstanding, they remember that. They remember how you broached it. They remember how you dealt with it. They remember how you were dealt with, and that word carries. Masai Ujiri is a very well-respected man around the NBA for good reason. He's one of the most highly demanded, most highly sought-out executives for a good reason. He is damn good at his job. He is an excellent talent evaluator, an amazing scout, and a culture builder. he has been perhaps a little too hands-off the last 2 years, trusting that Fred, Pascal, Nick Nurse, they got it. They didn't get it. He watched, and he correctly identified that culture was missing. We need to rebuild the culture. How many general managers talk like that? Be honest. I just listened to Tillman Fertitta and this recluse, ridiculous Houston Rockets team that I've been watching for a couple years now, this complete wasteland of talent, just talk about how they're building something special. All cap. All bullshit. Doesn't even know what he doesn't have. I believe that it is extremely rare to develop the way the Raptors have. I believe it is extremely rare to hire the way that they have. They have their work cut out for them, no doubt. They have a lot of big decisions, no doubt. But every one of those decisions is going to require a meeting. Every one of those draft workouts is going to require a meeting. And I will trust that one of the best talent evaluators and one of the best people in the NBA and one of the best people readers in the NBA is going to make accurate decisions. No one is perfect. There are general managers who flop every year in the draft, 6 years in a row, somehow still keep their job because they're in a big market and they keep getting free agents. The Raptors are not in a necessarily the most desirable NBA market. Fine, we get it. But this is the most stable that I have seen this organization in its entirety. Throughout the 2010s, I can make a very strong case that the Toronto Raptors were the second most successful franchise in the NBA after the Golden State Warriors. You can make some case for the Miami Heat, Cleveland Cavaliers. They're a top 4 team for a decade. From 2013, which is Masai Ujiri, till 2021, this was the second winningest team in the league. They never had, apart from 1 year, a top 10 player. Not once. I think they have one now. I think they're building one up in Scotty Barnes. And I'm excited to see what some of these prospects can be. Because I don't think that you're fully appreciating how good a Delano Banton could be in the right system. I don't think you're fully appreciating how good a Christian Coloco or a Precious Achiuwa could be in the right situation. If I had told you when he was averaging 6 points per game and going down to doing stints in the G League that Pascal Siakam would one day be a 2-time All-NBA guy, if I told you on the night that he was drafted, as every Raptor fan was upset that we didn't pick Skal Labissiere, and this guy who was supposed to go 45th went 27th, and everyone said, oh no, it's Bruno Caboclo all over again. Masai loves Africans. Y'all remember that? I do. I didn't get the pick at the time, but I have learned to go back to a mantra that I've sort of developed over some period of time. Believe in Masai. And he's going to see things that you don't see. He sees things that I don't see. But over the years, I've learned to see how he sees. I've learned to see what he sees in a Justin Champagny or a Joe Wieskamp or a Christian Coloco. I dig into these guys. I listen to their interviews. I see what they're about. And I try to understand why he thinks they can become something more than what they are. I listen to a guy like Christian Coloco and his story and his work ethic and how he grew in Arizona. I see the gifts that this young man has, and I think to myself, he can be really special. He can be a starting center in the NBA. You got that at the 33rd overall pick. I look at a guy like Joe Wieskamp. I look at guys like Jeff Doughton. I see no reason why these guys are not on the same level as a lot of guys getting minutes in the NBA. I really don't. I genuinely see the potential. I'm not saying it's all perfect. I'm not saying, yeah, he signs contracts that are definitely not the greatest, gives too many player options, holds on to guys too long, maybe waits too long, maybe overestimates his roster, maybe has a bit of a blind spot for Fred and Pascal, maybe overvalues certain guys on his own team. Fine, but he gets culture. As I said, nobody's perfect. Absolutely nobody's perfect. Correct. No, he didn't. But we don't have to talk about that. I believe that this team will rebuild itself over this offseason. I do not believe that you will be rooting for a loser next year. I don't think you're going to see another disaster season. Because, as I said, every decision that must be made for the Toronto Raptors this offseason will require a face-to-face meeting where someone has to sit in a room with Masai Ujiri and talk to him about what they are, who they are, and what they're trying to do. Whether it be a draft pick that they're looking at for 13, whether it be a free agent, whether it be a player that they're thinking about re-signing. And I feel very, very intently that Masai Ujiri is on red alert right now. I spotted it at the trade deadline. I'd never seen him so shaken. I'd never seen him so frazzled. You know, you got to appreciate a guy who won a championship for a city that genuinely did not expect to win one at any point ever. You know, I remember someone talking in 2014. They said, Raptors will win an NBA championship before 2050, yes or no? Most people rooted no. They won one in 2019, man. That's 31 years early. And you got to appreciate that he's not just waving around the championship ring and saying, well, we won one 4 years ago. No, instead he comes out and he says, nobody cares. That's in the past. I'm looking into the future. I have been very blessed in my life to be around good people, successful people, the right people. I think I know what makes people successful. I think I understand what a winner looks like. I think I know what a winner sounds like, what they talk like. I also know what a loser sounds like. Masai Ujiri is a winner. He's been batting 100 for 25 years. Nobody expected him to be here. If you met Masai Ujiri in 2001, you wouldn't expect him to be the top paid executive in the league. But that's where he is. He understands this. He is a meticulous tactician, a master of his craft. He gets this. And if he's telling you that there is more talent on this roster than meets the eye, if he's telling you that he does not appreciate the way Nick Nurse buried some of his bench players, it is for good reason. Because he's had conversations with those players that Nurse simply is not capable of having. Because he understands what drives them. He hired Nick Nurse, Coach of the Year, right? He decided to keep Dwayne Casey, Coach of the Year. First time the Raptors went to the Eastern Conference Finals. How'd they do it? You know, he's made calculated gambles all the way through. People talk about how he doesn't make any trades. Man, he traded Terrence Ross for Serge Ibaka. Great trade, right? He knew, despite how much he loved Jonas Valanciunas and how unpopular that move was at the time, and people kind of saying like, hey, you know, like JV's younger, etc. He knew he needed to make that trade for Marc Gasol. I don't think Ime Udoka is right. So this comment right here, I disagree. Because I'm sorry, I don't agree with him. I genuinely believe that you are in good hands. So Raptor fans, get ready for a bumpy offseason. But I'm going to repeat it. Trust in Masai. He gets it. He gets this. He gets people. Okay? And you might think that's just a blanket statement, that I'm being delusional. But remember who I am. I'm the same person who told you this roster was dog shit all year, that the trade was too late, that there were chemistry issues, that the team was playing selfish. I've been 100 with you the whole way through. But I've heard Masai Ujiri speak on this. I have seen what he's done this offseason so far, firing Nick Nurse. And now I'm just looking at this roster up and down of young players and veterans who are up for extensions or new contracts, and I'm looking around and I'm like, look at it on paper. This is not a 41 win team. This is not a 41 win team. This is a 50 win team that genuinely played like shit all year. That had a toxic culture, a bad workplace environment. They lost who they were. He identified it correctly. You know, all year I was waiting for the media to catch up. I was waiting for the media to call this out for what it is. I was waiting for the media to say, this team is selfish. They're not playing the right way. They're not fun to watch. Everything that I've been saying all year, that this team is crap. I didn't hear it. I did not hear it. I waited all year. I didn't hear it. And when I finally heard it, who said it? Masai Ujiri. Called his own team out. Correct. He came correct. He keeps it 100. When he fired Dwayne Casey, he told you it hurt him. Trading DeMar DeRozan, it hurt him. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong. It makes you a strong human being that you can admit that you cared about these people. And I believe genuinely, I genuinely believe this, that there are a lot of players in this league who could have been so much more than they were had they had a person in their life, a general manager, a president. It's not arbitrary. Sebastian Telfair didn't just become a bust. Quintel Woods didn't just become a bust. These guys were phenomenally talented players. But you require a culture. You understand? It's like company culture. You don't know who that person is until they enter your culture. And then the culture builds up. It rebuilds the human. Because at the end of the day, we're talking about basketball. We're talking about basketball players. But we're talking about human beings. And human beings can change. Thoughts can change. Ideas can change. The mentality, the approach can change. Meet the right people, hang out with the right people. Your entire philosophy on life can change very quickly. I believe Masai Ujiri is correct that the culture is the first thing that needs to be rebuilt. A coach, star players, whoever comes back. He made it clear. If you're with us, you're with us. If you're not, get off. Get lost. You're not coming with us. All right. So now all that's remained to be seen is whether or not he's going to hold true to what he's saying. When people show you who they are, believe them. Yeah. He doesn't lie. He's a very honest person. From what I understand, he's a very honest person. Even when it seems inconsistent to you. Playing for what? Suddenly he wants to play in. Totally different situation. When I say I trust in Masai, it's not that I think he's God. It's not that I think he's like perfect. Trust in Masai just simply means I trust in the philosophy of team building that he's building here. I trust in his approach to people. I trust in his evaluation. I trust in his ability to understand this game and understand how people grow. This message is coming straight from the heart. It's not coming straight from the head. It's coming straight from the heart. But sometimes we got to learn to speak from the heart. You know what I mean? You feel me? That's just not true. That's not true. All he's done in the last 3 years is talk. I disagree, man. That's not true. That's not what he did. All right, we got Coach Mo. All right, let's have a little conversation here. Coach Mo, what's going on, man?
Yeah.
Long time no talk.
Yeah, I agree with the
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, we lost Coach Mo. Try to call back again, man. I know that you guys probably think that I'm doing a 180. I'm not. Okay. Coach Mo, what's going on?
Can you hear me now?
Still nothing?
No, still nothing. Still nothing.
Nada? Yo, turn up your volume.
Let me try
Still can't hear you, man. All right, we're gonna have to try that some other time, man.
Yeah.
Oh, y'all can hear him?
Oh, they
I
can hear me.
can't. Okay, I'm gonna leave and come back. Hang on.
Okay, okay. That's true. Masai does a lot of talking, a lot of evaluating, a lot of blank stares.
All right.
Okay, can you hear me now?
What up?
Okay, you can hear me?
Yo, I still can't hear you, man.
Can the other people still hear me?
Hang on. Damn, that sucks. I'm so sorry, man. I genuinely can't hear you. I mean,
Well,
I would love to
yeah, no
hear what you're
problem.
saying, but
No problem.
unfortunately I can't.
Well,
Um, I mean, I can
well,
try to turn on YouTube so that I can hear you. I don't understand why I can't hear you though.
but the YouTube would be delayed.
Damn, that sucks. I mean, I would love to talk to you, but damn it. All right, let me
Yeah,
try.
they can still hear me. They can still hear me. They're saying they can still hear me.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is we're gonna have a very stunted conversation. So I'm gonna listen to the YouTube and hear what you're saying there, and then I'll be able to respond here. Hang on. But it's going to be very laggy. I don't know if this is a good idea, but yeah, it's going to be laggy as hell.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The
Hang
the
on.
the the,
Okay,
the
I'm just going
later
to open up
listeners are
YouTube here.
going to.
Sorry, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with this, man. I don't know why I can't hear you, but all right.
I can hear Rob. I can hear Rob.
Okay. Hang on, y'all. Oh, it's just audio, period.
Okay, now I can't hear you. Actually, wait, no, that's
Sorry,
not.
guys. Give me 1 second here. I'll figure this out. I do not understand what the hell's
Okay,
going on here.
I can hear you. That was Cat. Well, anyways, I'm just gonna start speaking anyway. Whoever's watching the Knicks and the Cavs series, the Knicks won three
Building my
one.
brand. I'm not building my brand.
Chat, I swear to God, if you switch Mobley and with Scotty Barnes on that Knicks team, they're not losing 3-1. I bet the house on that. You're not punking Scotty like that. That ain't happening. Nah.
Yo, I think I hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I told
Success.
I told the chat.
If you switch Mobley for Barnes, is what you messaged me on Instagram.
Yeah, yeah. It's the 4-1's not happening.
All right. Okay, so now we can have a discussion. I didn't hear anything you said for the last 10 minutes,
Okay,
so
I wasn't
I
really
hope it
saying much.
was.
I didn't say it much.
All right,
Um,
talk to me now. What are your thoughts on this?
okay.
Am I being crazy?
No, you're not. If we're talking about other executives and front offices in the league, yeah, I agree with you.
I remember meeting a couple of executives in 2004, 2005. I felt dirty after meeting them, like truly sleazy. Like they were gross. Like they were gross people. Like I could feel like that they didn't care about anyone. I felt like there's sort of this air of superficiality to them. And I guess I just respect Masai because he's not like that. Like he's a genuine human being. And
Okay,
I think that that carries.
yeah, and what this organization needs most that we were lacking, we had a lot of cowards. I feel like, especially Nick Nurse, like just not being upfront. Like that interaction in his exit interview is still burned into my memory about him having a little argument about if what he said was, uh, his future, his unsolicited, you know, I'm gonna reevaluate myself in the summer, and then
The Philly
reporters were
thing, right?
checking him on it, and that let me know, yeah, this dude's he's done. Like he's absolutely done. And the Adrian Griffin, I don't want him as the coach. I think anyone associated with him is fruit of the poisonous tree. That's how bad this season was to me.
Yeah, look, I just
I don't want to touch any of those guys because
what
if
if
you
I
could,
told what if I told you Masai was going to coach this team next year? Would you be like, I like that?
they'd actually go harder.
Wouldn't
If he
they?
has assistants, to do most of the X's and O's, yeah,
Hmm.
we would have been better off this year.
Yeah. So Ron in Dan is saying so Masai is charismatic. Good for him. It's not charisma, man. A lot of people are charismatic. A lot of people are charming. I'm talking like authentic to the fucking core. I read people pretty well.
You
Like
can't
Masai Ujiri,
charismatic
like
your
he
way through
doesn't
an entire
lie.
season.
Hmm?
You can't be charismatic and as a main thing to coach. It might work in like a one-on-one meeting, or if you're a public speaker, but like if you have to
Communication is
coach a
always
team,
going to be like communication, like for
yeah,
instance, like if I'm charismatic and I got to tell you you're not playing tomorrow, right? It's going to be different if I have some charisma, some humor about it, some humility,
yeah,
some tact, some speaking skills. Like it's always like I remember like my grandmother used to say, she's like, there's 100 different ways to deliver bad news, and most of them are good. I
yeah.
love that quote, and I've cited it before on this chat, and that's just what it is, right? Masai Ujiri, like he just gets people. He comes from the walk of life that he understands people. I feel the same way about Jawmeister. I felt the same way
We
about
know
Ime
Nurse
Udoka.
doesn't. We know Nurse doesn't. And to
And
me,
nurse is the exact thing, right? He doesn't. And who else doesn't understand people, in my opinion? Sam Hinkie, right? Like people
yeah,
like
yeah,
this, they
yeah,
just kind of have like a grinding nature to them, where it's like you're talking to a blank slate. And I respect the basketball acumen, the data driven, all that stuff, Daryl Morey, whatever. But like when I listen to these people, I'm just like, I don't know about the culture they're building. Right? They might make good picks, they might read the stats, they might come up with a new advanced stat, whatever. But when it comes down to it, basketball is a people business. It really is. It's all relationships. It's relationship management. It's culture building.
yeah, yeah,
Culture building is such an underrated thing. I mean, look at the previous regimes. The locker rooms. God damn it, the locker rooms and the connectivity on those Chris Bosh teams. It was shit, man. It was absolute shit. Tim Lewicki and Masai Ujiri cleaned house. They came in here. They built this culture up. Y'all act like it was just Kyle Lowry. They made Kyle Lowry this way. I mean, they helped him become that leader. He didn't come in like that. He was kind of doing his time, and he was expecting to leave really quickly. He didn't expect to stay here. So it's like this culture of like, okay, was it DeMar? Was it Kyle? Yeah, sure. Was it Coach Casey? Yeah, sure. That's definitely a big part of it. I'm sure Patrick Patterson, Gravis Vasquez, all these guys put that culture together and they put it here. But now that we've seen it, like Masai Ujiri also spearheaded all of that, right? He put those guys in place. He chose not to trade certain guys. Sometimes he lucked out, whatever. But I just think at the end of the day, he spotted the problem and he voiced it when I think a lot of people wouldn't have. He made a trade for Jakob Poeltl when I think, I disagreed with the trade at the time because I thought it was too late, whatever. He doubled down. He believed in the people. It's a mistake for sure. It's a mistake. I can be critical of the mistake, but I cannot be critical of the mindset or like the heart that went into it. The belief in, okay, we got to give Nurse a chance, Pascal a chance, Fred a chance. Like most of us think like, shit, man, it's a business. Fuck off. Fuck those guys.
sure.
But he didn't get this. He didn't help Pascal become this way by being cutthroat. He got him to this point. Like for instance, when Pascal blew up in Tampa, right? Or even when Scotty was struggling earlier this year, who came and had a heart to heart with them? Masai Ujiri, right? I think those moments, they have a way, like of changing your career trajectory sometimes. They could completely blow up in your face, and next thing you know, you have a Vince Carter situation where the guy's demanding a trade, he wants out. Masai Ujiri has run a largely controversy-free kumbaya locker room organization for about 8 years. Prior to this year, it was good vibes. It was great vibes. Felt good to be a Raptor fan. And I think he's a really big part of the architect. He's a really big part. I mean, you consider like look at the people he's hired. Bobby Webster, Dan Tolzman, shit, Orlando's general manager. Where did he come from? Right? Look at the coaching tree that's expanded out for Nick Nurse. I mean, first of all, Dwayne Casey, Nick Nurse, like he's putting great people. His entire his handprints are all over the league now, right? So I just think that this is someone who has done a great job. I don't know if he was distracted this year. I don't know if he was distracted last year. I don't know if he's a little too hands off right now, but it seems like the urgency level is up,
I mean,
right?
this could have happened last year easily. What happened this year is just last year we were about the same going into the new year, but then we righted the ship,
Mm-hmm.
right? This year we
Yeah.
didn't right the ship. So you could argue last year was a fluke.
I don't think it
This
was.
this could have happened last year.
I think, genuinely speaking, I think the team could
The
have been.
conference was easier last year.
That's
Wins were
fair.
harder to come by this year, right? You can just make the case we were basically the same team we were last year. The conference just got better. The conference got so much better. If you were 48 last year, you're 41 this year. Like 5 game difference, right? I mean, the only free win this year in the East was Charlotte,
Detroit.
essentially, and Detroit. Yeah, two.
But you actually beat Detroit this year. You lost 3 games to
Yeah.
Detroit last year, my guy. So that means last year, if
Our
you'd actually
record.
beat Detroit, like you should have, because I mean, let's be honest, everyone was beating Detroit except for us, right? I don't think any other team got swept by Detroit other than us. So if you beat Detroit, you're a 51 win
Yeah.
team last year. Think about that.
I,
I mean, we beat up on shitty teams this year because that's the culture that we had. We had a culture that we had guys who got up for the shitty teams and sunk against
by the
really
way,
good teams.
by the way, I love the fact that Boucher in his podcast that came out today said, "Okay, we beat the Charlotte. No one cares. No one cares."
Thank you, Chris Boucher.
God,
Absolutely.
that was
Call
a
it for what it is.
yeah.
I am so convinced now that Chris Boucher is a listener of this channel.
And do you know? And another thing I noticed about Chris Boucher, all the people he says he hangs out with, OG. He says he loves OG,
Precious,
Precious,
OG,
Doughton,
Christian,
Christian,
all my favorite people.
right? Uh,
All my favorite people.
and the subtle digs, unlike they're not
Fred.
at Fred because he's like Fred tries, but he basically said Fred tries and he really wants to win. He ain't Kyle though. That's basically what he said.
Absolutely.
He ain't Kyle because Kyle makes you believe.
Yeah, Jason Williams saying the G League Hornets. Bro, he called them the G League team.
Yeah,
He's
he called
like,
them
we
G League.
basically beat a G League team. That's words out of my fucking mouth.
And
I
then
loved
he
it.
said we were G Leaguers against the Celtics.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
like, and we were G League against the Celtics. I just feel like Masai should have fired Nurse. Like if you're gonna believe in the team, okay, that's one thing. Why are you at some point you should have fired Nurse to try to salvage the season at any point because at a certain point it was insanity.
See, the thing is that, it's
'Cause
hard
it was a slow sinking ship for
No,
months.
I get it. Look, we went through this all year. You and I had a lot of conversations this year. I think we were both in agreement that the plug should have been pulled a long time ago. And we would definitely agree
On the
that if
roster
Masai
with the
Ujiri
coach,
could
at something, just something. Try something.
correct. And they thought that introducing a selfless player who would help Fred and Pascal hopefully learn their selfish ways. I don't know.
Unless that center was Jokic, it wasn't going to work.
Facts. But, Jakob, he made an impact. Look, this team, I mean, for everyone saying enjoy the play-in next year, okay, look, I'm not saying all these guys are going to be back. I'm not saying anything, but I am saying that I expect most players on this team to be better next year than they were this year. I also expect the team culture to improve. I also want to say that after the All-Star break, genuinely speaking, if you add a 13th overall pick and healthy Otto Porter to this team, I think you're a 50-win team. I genuinely believe that, like a 50 to 52 win team. Now, obviously, everyone's not coming back. Fine. Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet could regress by a little bit. But how much is offset by Scotty Barnes potentially taking another step? I just see it's like,
Who will be better than next year? Who? You're saying 5. Like, give me the teams that are guaranteed to be better than us? You think?
Boston. That's it.
That's all.
That is
That's
the
the only one you can
only team
guarantee.
that I can guarantee will be better than you next year. And that's it. Because Philadelphia could lose James Harden. You don't know what is going to go on with that team. Milwaukee, I mean, yeah, you could say they're going to be better, but who's next up on that team? That's a very aging roster. And, Chris Middleton is not inspiring anything.
Nope.
Giannis Antetokounmpo, like, as much as I genuinely love that guy, he's on the downward slope right now. Like, people aren't seeing it right now, but it's on its way down. It's a very high peak. I get that, but
Hmm.
it's on its way down. Brooke Lopez is very close. All four guys could be worse next year. That's pretty much your team. Who's coming up next? Marjan Beauchamp? Look, I mean, and
Harden might not be in Philly next
they're
year.
super capped out too, right? So you could
Harden
make
might
it.
not be in Philly.
Harden might not be in Philly. He's been a huge part of what they're doing this year. So yeah, you could say Mel. Look, I'm saying guaranteed Boston. Beyond that, likely there's like three or four other teams, sure.
Yeah, yeah.
But you're a playoff team next year. If you bring this core back with one or two positive changes, that could include a sign and trade for Fred, sign and trade for Pascal, something like that, or a trade for Pascal for somewhat equal value coming back and just restructure this roster that makes sense. I don't think you need to blow this up. First of all, you can't blow this
Yeah, no,
up.
you
So I
can't.
don't know why people keep talking about that. You can't even fucking blow it up. So let's not even talk about that path. That path closed. We're all upset about it, but move on. Can't do anything about it. As Masai said, don't look back, look forward. So looking forward, you know, free agency, making sure those terms are good, draft, making sure that guy is a rotation piece next year and that he actually plays, a coaching hire, someone who's on pace to rebuild this culture and can do that. And that's going to require a special human being. But, you have some special human beings here too, right? You have a Scotty Barnes who I think, if
Mhm.
given a more of a leadership role, he is that culture. Everything the Raptors were with DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry, that is who Scotty Barnes is.
I think if Fred is not here next year, I think Fred comfortably spreads his wings like so wide because he has no competition,
Hmm.
and
Yeah, I
there's no
look.
weird just whatever it is between them. Whether it's a figment of our imagination or it's real. Like it's just I don't know. I just have a sour taste of watching what I watched, and I think
Look, I
Masai.
get it. Look, I had years and years. Like, I don't know if I've ever talked about this on this channel, but I became an investor when I was 2007. So in 2006, I started working security, and this guy, he took a liking to me. I was working in a condo, and he started giving me books. He's like, "Hey man, you're just sitting here anyways. You're doing your homework, you're doing schoolwork, whatever. Here's some books on investing." And he started giving them to me, and I started reading them, and I got into investing heavy. I became very good at it. And the most important thing about investing was understanding the psychology of investors. So important, super important. And it is a big reason why I bought Facebook stock at the absolute dumps, or Netflix on the crash, or Tesla when it was $26 a share. My point is, time and time again, people have no concept of the growth that can occur when there is a bearish trend. Right now, the Raptors are in a bearish cycle, right? A lot of bad things have happened all at once, and your mind is frazzled, and there is a tendency to overreact to the opposite extreme. Now, the same people, it's not surprising to me that the same people who were hyping up Pascal Siakam for MVP, this team's great, blah, 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 the same people who thought this team would, make the playoffs at the deadline, the same people who thought, everything was all right, those are the same people now who are panicked and saying, throw everything out. It's all trash. Pascal Siakam's not an NBA player. Fred VanVleet's not worth a minimum. These people just consistently overreact to the absolute opposite extreme. And as an investor, it is really good to cut through the noise and understand what's real and what's not, because it's never real, right? Like when someone tells you, oh man, properties are going up for like 15% every single year. Well, yeah, there's a tendency to like be like, well, I got to buy in right now. No critical thought required, right? No investigation into the area, no investigation into, the overall market trends, doing any cross referencing across, maybe familiar patterns. Are you buying on a downswing? Same thing when the market starts to soften up a little bit. People panic sell. They panic sell. They're like, oh my God, all my money's going to get wiped out. People oscillate between extremes. I've seen it my whole life. I've literally been watching it my whole life. And so it's good to remain somewhat balanced and realize it's never as bad or as good as you think it's going to be. Almost never,
Mhm.
right? I don't think Pascal Siakam's as bad as people think he
Nope.
is now, and I don't think he's as good as people thought he was back then. The truth is somewhere in the middle, right? And I don't think like John Hamilton saying here, like, I'm overestimating this team. Like they'll be lucky to they won't make fifth seed next year. You're kidding me. I mean, honestly, they were on pace. They were like the fifth best team in the Eastern Conference, or one of the better defenses in the Eastern Conference after the deadline. If you have Jakob Pertl, you're a better team. You just straight up, you're a better team. I just don't imagine that the culture,
Yep.
that was around this team, the style of play. I mean, yo, man, like you're a
We
coach. Like
played.
did we play to our strengths this year?
We were hurting ourselves so bad. We did not play to our player strengths.
Absolutely.
It was a negative
Absolutely.
environment, and we were still 41 and 41.
Agreed.
And we were still 41 and 41
Exactly.
with a lot of games blown at the end.
So many games, so
Like
many winnable
this
games. You're
season
up by
can
six,
very
7 points
easily
in the
be
fourth quarter.
46 wins, very easily.
Easily. I think
I
this
know.
team could have been a 46 win team without Jakob.
Yes,
With Jakob, the whole season, genuinely think this team could have been like a 52 win team. So I don't understand.
I know.
Yeah, we got Fabio coming on here.
Yeah,
Okay. Let's get Fabio on. Fabio, what's up?
I can't hear him. Man, I wish I could hear him.
We can't hear you, man.
We can see you.
We can see you, but we can't hear you.
Holy sh! That's not a filter.
No, man. Um, thank you so much, Fabio. Cheers. Okay. Um, sorry, Fabio. We couldn't hear you, man. Um, yeah. Anyways, so yeah. Um, point being,
Anyway, I
right,
yeah, about the team not being able to be a fifth seed, right? And we're like,
right.
no, it's very doable. Like, I don't think any team in the league
Mm-hmm.
had more self-afflicted wounds all season than we did.
Agreed. It was absolutely there. If you could think of another team like this, Dallas, a little bit like that too.
Yeah,
A lot of
but they
self-inflicted
went straight
stuff.
to tank mode at the end.
They did.
We never went into tank mode at all.
Can you think of another team that fits this mold of self-inflicted wounds?
Besides tankers, who's
Yeah,
that?
no tankers, but like teams that just consistently shot themselves in the foot. I watched a lot of NBA basketball this year, like more than I think I've watched in years. Maybe it's because of Pinsar basketball and just wanting to be updated on stuff, but like I did not I could
No,
not I cannot think of a team that underperformed expectations more than this team. It was absolutely
no,
ridiculous.
come, yeah, yeah, yeah. I was like, Washington comes to mind, but they're like, there's no expectations there, and they don't have as much talent as we do.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, it was us. It was
Yeah.
us. And I just randomly on what's his name, Adrian Griffin. I feel like for him, the reason why I don't want him as the coach is because I remember watching an open gym episode, and him and Nick Nurse were getting like PhDs together,
Hmm.
and
Yes, I remember that.
and they're like real close, right? And I'm like, if you couldn't step in and like try to save the season or tell Nurse anything, like if there was an incident where he was Earl Watson and they were getting into an argument, I'm like, okay, we may be able to keep that guy because he tried to right the ship.
Hmm.
But I don't need a yes man. Like if to me, if I'm Masai and I know for a fact you didn't try to step up or check him, I'm like, no, you're just you're another coward. We don't need cowards. We need people to check players and hold them accountable. We don't need no more
I
people
mean,
sitting in the
look,
corner.
I think you gotta consider Adrian Griffin's position too,
I
right?
mean,
I
it's
mean,
going bad. Like, dude, it's going bad.
I hear
Players
you.
don't like anything that's going on. The bench, everyone's sitting in the corner all
Here's
the
my
way on the
here's
other side.
here's my
It's bad.
question for you. Okay, okay. So reportedly, Earl Watson was not a fan of what Nick Nurse is doing, right? Reportedly, again, stuff that I've heard and stuff that'll come out and stuff that's already starting to be reported all year, which is basically, that there's a faction within the locker room. There's certain guys who will literally, go to certain assistants, but not other assistants.
Mhm, mhm.
There's a sort of like gag order on, how much assistants had access to players. Okay. So all of that being said,
So weird.
if Earl Watson, right, handles that situation a little bit better. Okay, we can all agree, the coach is off his rocker. Nick Nurse is in the wrong. I'm not saying Earl Watson's wrong, but I'm saying, did he help? Did he make it better? And we don't know that. But I'm saying, like, he got sent away from.
He
It's
tried.
like, so
He
that's my
tried.
point. It's like,
He tried.
did he?
And I'm only saying this because they have that relationship. I'm not
This
saying
is a
someone who doesn't know the
Atlanta. This is a great example. When we talked about self-inflicted wounds, Atlanta is another great example of self-inflicted wounds. Everything that happened with Trae Young, DeJounte Murray this year, that team is a perfect example of self-inflicted wounds. And what happened in the play-in, right? Okay, granted, Herculean effort by Trae Young, to push the series. But look at what DeJounte Murray does. Now, DeJounte is one of my favorite players in the NBA. No shade on him. But look at what he does at the end of that freaking game
but
where he
Rob,
goes up to the ref.
yeah, but yeah, I know that was bad. But
So he gets
couldn't
himself
you?
kicked out. But
Could,
it's like look at the Warriors. Like Draymond Green punching Jordan Poole and then, getting himself suspended. Like, I think all of these things are part of the culture and accountability. Great teams don't have these things happen consistently. Dysfunctional teams have these things happen every week, right? So I look at, Fred Van Vliet,
how
the
many of
the
those teams
whole
did it happen to in the coaching staff though?
that's fair.
That's the
And
weird part.
so that's my point. It's like, we talked about the clutch gene yesterday, about keeping your nerves, right? And I think it was a fantastic video. I think it's super underrated. One of my favorite videos on this channel. And I'm talking about like Chris Webber calling that timeout for Michigan State.
Yeah, that was bad.
It was terrible.
He
But
did
think
so much.
about think about the composure that you have as a player when your coach is literally up and down, up and down, up and down, freaking out all the time. Like, you feed off of that. I feel it, man. I feel it when I
Mhm,
watch the Boston Celtics in the playoffs. Ime Udoka's presence, like, not to harp on Ime because he's obviously with the Houston Rockets right now,
mhm,
but
mhm.
his presence really seemed to calm the group down. That is always, when you are in close proximity with a lot of human beings, strong energies have a way of transferring. So someone like Kawhi Leonard can literally calm down even a guy like Nick Nurse. You know, like Nick Nurse freaking out, Kawhi Leonard, that giant mitt of a hand
Mhm.
on his shoulder. Coach, don't worry, I got us. And he's calm. He's calm. He's like a big baby. He's calm. And that can have a sort of so typically the leaders in your locker room, the strongest people, the strongest presence in your locker room is going to have a disproportionately large effect on the psyche and collective vibe of the entire group. And I think that Nick Nurse is a very big personality. I think he has a lot of presence. And I think Fred Van Vliet's a really big personality. I think he has a
Mhm,
lot of presence. And I think
mhm.
Scotty's a really big personality. I think he has a lot of presence. And I think the good just frankly was outweighed by the bad in that situation. So when you talk about the leadership, like I mean, there's just so many things that happened for this team this year that frankly shouldn't have happened, were unpredictable. I mean, if I had told you, given how Thad was talking about Scotty early in the season, how he was talking about him when he got traded, if I had told you that whole halftime controversy would have happened between those two, granted, everyone said it's just guys being guys, but like there was a real disconnect there, you know
Mhm.
there was like that's not, it's just there was no dabs after. I mean, I'm sure like he gave him a hug after in the locker room and all that stuff. It was, but it's just like that frustration boils over, right? And that frustration is, and Chris Boucher, you know, to those who haven't listened to it, and kudos to people
Great,
who have
great,
some
great show.
great interview, and he had this one thing where he said, you know, we are living our life pretty much in the limelight, so you don't know like what the guy's going through. You don't know if he's going through a divorce or he's going through something at home, and you just see him on the court and he has a bad shooting night or he snaps at somebody.
A
He
guy hits him a
describes
little harder than normal, and then he takes it
exactly.
out on him.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And that's a perfectly human way to look at it, right? That's a perfectly human thing because I mean my girlfriend made a point the other day. She's like, "What if you had to live your entire life out on, you know, in the public eye, right? Every moment of your freaking work day, you know, oh, he's so lazy, oh, he's so that. My God, it's like being in a fishbowl, right? It's very crazy." And so I look at, you know, he made such a great point about that, which is like that this the you know, when he was asked for one word to describe the season, weird. That tells me everything. He didn't say disappointing. He didn't say anything. He said weird. And that to me implies like when I describe something as weird, it means that I don't understand it.
yeah.
So if the person on the inside doesn't understand, how the fuck is anyone on the outside supposed to understand it?
Man,
I think
another troubling thing he mentioned was if you saw practices, you'd be confused too why certain guys aren't playing. If you watch practices, like
yeah.
the way certain guys were playing in practice and how
Look, I,
hard a
I
crew was
completely
playing.
agree with him when he says that the bench guys should have gotten more run. I mean, god damn it. Like, do people here genuinely believe that Masai Ujiri just forgot how to scout? Like, this is a guy who made like real NBA players out of undrafted guys
Yep.
just 3 years ago. Now he can't make real NBA players out of lottery guys and 22nd overall picks and 28th overall picks.
N-
I mean, he
Nurse
doesn't make.
Nurse
Go
had this. Nurse almost has like a negative attribute, almost in the sense that he can zap a player's confidence so quickly. Like he'll destroy it.
I've listened to him talk. I really have. And I'm just like, you know
He
what?
Achua, if he could breathe, he could have breathed life into Achua. Achua could
Really
be
could have.
so much better. Like I feel like the last 2 years or year and a half, this
Hmm.
in terms of development, in terms of certain players and where Masai in the front office had a timeline for certain players, it's just
Hmm.
been shafted by like a year, 2 years. Like
Yeah, I agree.
certain guys might not even be able to be saved.
Um, you know the OKC coach, Mark Daignault?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do you know he had like every weekend he would have
With
I think he
Chet,
would Chet I think he was
and
having
he's not even playing.
breakfast
Yeah,
with Chet and he wasn't even playing. It's these small things, you know, again,
and you can coach
communication.
people harder when you do that because they know you care.
Look,
You have a relationship with them.
every single player when they go out onto the court, there is a priming element. Like their brain has to be calm to some extent. There has to be some sort of element of like, are you in a fight or flight defensive state? Are you in a, you know, because when you don't know what your role is on a night to night basis and you don't have a coach that you trust and you don't have like, man, there's so many times that we have seen the impact of a coaching change on a roster.
Mhm.
God damn it. Look at Luke Walton in Sacramento is the perfect example of a guy who was not connecting with his players. There was so much controversy between Luke
Yep.
Walton, Marvin Bagley, whatever. Now, I
Mhm.
don't know what the hell Marvin Bagley could have become if he had been coached as a rookie under Mike Brown. Most people would argue he would have been shit regardless. But
Mhm.
you don't know that
You
because we
don't
didn't
know.
see that reality. But I will tell you that Keegan Murray thrived under Coach Brown, right?
And he was struggling in the beginning of
Yeah.
that series
Yeah.
against the Warriors, struggling mightily, and he
Hmm.
still stuck with him. And everyone's cheering for him, and they believe in him. And he finally had a good game the other game, and they were like every time he touched the ball, like the vets were, and it's like you, it's impossible to fail in that environment.
Exactly. And look at what that culture has created. It has created light the beam. It has invigorated the fan base. And now we're talking about DeMontis Sabonis as a top ten MVP candidate. You really think DeMontis Sabonis is a better player than Pascal Siakam in a vacuum? Absolutely not. He is not. De'Aaron Fox is a MVP. Like he's a clutch player of the year. We're talking about him like a potential superstar. Oh my God, he's going to be a superstar. Okay, yeah, he's better than Fred VanVleet. But like, come on, like we were not talking about these guys this way. They were
No.
legitimately last year. People were like, this guy's an albatross contract. Now he's an ascending superstar. How did that happen? Coaching change. That's how it happens. Okay, it happens with accountability. It happens with trust. It happens with culture. And a guy like Mike Brown comes in from the Golden State Warriors, instills his culture, has those deep conversations, reestablishes the lines. Man, I saw Scotty Barnes not happy this year.
Nope.
How much is that impacting how he's working? I'm sure he's still in the gym, he's putting up the shots, but the joy element to basketball, growth. I saw this guy take a step back in so many regards this year in terms of his energy, in terms of his focus on defense, in terms of like so many things
Yeah.
that are all effort related. And I'm just like, this is not a player that I recognize. And so many players like that. Precious Achua, he's thinking all the time. He's
Way too
thinking,
much.
am I about to get benched right now? Am I going to get 6 minutes tonight, or am I going to get 25 minutes tonight? And that element of like unpredictability it
And
makes players insecure, unsure. And if it's not being communicated that, hey, tonight you might play 6 or you might play 16, but stay ready, and you're just being tossed in, you're just like, all
and it's
right.
like what's weird is when OG went down before the trade deadline, he was a starter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Chua, and he was playing really well. It's like
He was
none of that goodwill was banked.
right.
It's like, okay, now I don't care what you did for me. I'm gonna judge you right now on the next 3 minutes you play.
Delano Banton had
So
27
weird.
points. So Delano Banton had 27 points against Detroit. Did he play the next game?
No.
Jeff Doughton locks up Jaden Ivey. Locked him up. Like he did such a great job in that Detroit game. I was goo goo gaga over him. Like I was just like, this is incredible to watch a player on this team that has so many point of attack issues on defense to finally find a guy. I didn't come into this season some huge Jeff Doughton fan. I became a fan throughout the year. I started the Free Jeff movement because I saw what he could do in those games. Now, if I'm seeing it, and like I was calling for this in fucking November, December, I remember saying like free Jeff Doughton. And then it takes like a month and a half. But players are not stupid. They all know he can play, but he's not playing. He's not playing. And it's like, if I was for instance, like if you and I are in a company, right? And I'm your boss, and you have like great ideas, right? And then at some point, there's a guy who has a worse idea, but I like him more. So I just keep taking his idea over yours. And I don't explain why. Everyone around sees what I'm doing. At some point, they're going to be like, oh, this is just blatant favoritism towards this one guy, and he's not addressing it. When you refuse to have difficult conversations, relationships fall apart, right? When you refuse to address the elephant in the room, if you keep telling everyone that, oh, we got to play Fred VanVleet 38 minutes because we don't have a backup, and you let the media roast these guys, and these guys are in practice and they see that they actually do have a backup and that Jeff Doughton is absolutely capable of playing 15 to 18 minutes, bless that guy's heart that he didn't demand a trade or because he's not really in a position to, or like sulk. He never sulked. He was always up, man. You have some really great people on this team. Really great people.
We have no
There's so
bench.
many guys. I watch so many dysfunctional teams. Detroit, uh, shit, Minnesota. Like I've watched so many dysfunctional teams this year. Charlotte, who's going to get arrested this offseason in Charlotte? I don't know. But my point is, I watch so many dysfunctional teams, and I see so many good dudes on this team. I see guys like Precious Achua getting up and
No.
cheering on guys when guys are scoring. I see Jeff Doughton getting DMPCD after DMPCD, even though he definitely does not deserve it. As all we have to hear on the fucking media is, oh, Fred doesn't have a backup. Once again, it's on Masai Ujiri to give him a backup. He had a backup. I refuse to believe that Jeff Doughton is so bad. I mean, he outplayed Scoot Henderson in a head-to-head matchup. That's the second overall pick. He's not a scrub. He's a really good player. And they won't give him the moment to shine, but I swear to God, if you had given Jeff Doughton, if there was a random team out there that just decided, say it's an expansion team or whatever, they started Jeff Doughton this year, I assure you people will be talking about him like he's a definite top-end backup in the
Yeah.
NBA.
Like
But you don't give the guy the minutes, he doesn't thrive. And now we're talking about him like, oh, he's a fringe guy, couldn't even bump Will Barton. This entire end of the roster is being so criminally underrated. It's
Yeah,
actually sickening.
it is.
Yeah.
It
Um,
it's so bad. By the way, the clutch stuff. I always had this thought about the clutch gene. Like all the guys who are clutch,
mhm.
like who raised their level in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Guys like Kawhi,
Jimmy
Jimmy
Buckets.
Butler, even LeBron. Now he's older, but like the last like previous LeBron.
Yeah.
What I noticed they have in common, even Michael Jordan, it's like most of the regular season they kind of sleepwalk. But then there are moments in the regular
You
season
do
where
know
they
Jordan
become
averaged like 33, 34 points per
no, no.
game,
But I
right?
know, but there was a different Michael Jordan for certain matchups, right? Or if you piss him off, because there's plenty of stories where Michael Jordan's in a game and it's against like Charlotte, and he's just his team's down by like 15, and he's like and then the guy says something to him.
I think it genuinely, as I mentioned in the video, I think it comes down to fear, right? I think most people, when they think about a high leverage moment, they always think about what can go wrong. And I think people who thrive in those situations almost always think about what can go right. I think Michael Jordan is thinking about dunking on you instead of getting blocked by you.
Yep.
And that means he's going to go up and try to dunk on you over and over and over and over until he gets one down. And if you block him two times, it's going to be short memory, move on. Kobe Bryant missed so many fucking
Yeah.
shots in his career. It's mind over matter, man. It's a really important part of success. And the clutch gene, I don't think it's a gene. I just think it's a mindset. I think it's a way of awareness and training. And again, like, to just kind of close this off, because I did a live like for an hour
Hmm.
and a half
Yeah,
earlier, so
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't want to do like a 2 hour live right now, but just to kind of cap this off, what are you expecting from this team next year? If let's say if most of the roster is largely unchanged with maybe one or two changes, like, but there's a really good coach put into place who has like a completely different philosophy on bench rotations, using the bench, using Scotty, how he uses Pascal and Fred, etc. So like mainly the guys are back, but you have some more health. Maybe you have Otto back. Maybe Thad's gone. 13th overall pick's a good player. I don't know.
You
So
think
it's
we
like
keep the starting lineup? You think we keep that starting lineup?
I hope not. It doesn't work.
What's the
Basketball
starting
sense, it
lineup?
doesn't work.
What's the starting lineup? Same team.
Good question. Um, yes,
It's a hard one.
it is hard, right? Because who do you bench? You're not benching
Well,
Fred, or he's
if everyone
demanding a
got their
trade.
contracts, if everyone got their contracts below market value a little bit, I mean that kind of
Well,
solves the
Jakob's
spread.
not going to the bench. I mean, honestly, as I said, in my season wrap up,
Fred.
Fred's not going to the bench. You know that, right?
If Fred's going to the bench, we're winning 60. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, six man of the year, right? Look, I genuinely don't think that Fred's a bad player. I think he's a
No, I
good
don't. I
player
don't.
who just
Neither do I.
played horribly. I think he's a good player who played in the most terrible way, not conducive to his skills. I think he struggled all year to adjust,
I mean
to a role.
that last game against the Bulls was just epitomized his entire season. He's off the ball, he's efficient. He's on the ball, he's so inefficient.
Look at the shots he
It's
made, man. It
crazy.
was it was
It's
so
crazy.
crazy. If this guy can have an attitude adjustment, if Masai Ujiri or the new coach can have, but you got to look at it from the perspective of who was allowing him and Pascal to take these dumbass shots. The first thing that Ime Udoka said in his press conference, one of the first things was, "Youth is not an excuse. You will be held accountable for bad shot selection, mailing it on defense." Was Pascal Siakam held accountable for his terrible shit ass defense this year?
No.
I don't think so, because I never saw him get benched ever. Was Fred VanVleet held accountable for his terrible shot selection? No, because I never saw him get benched. Regardless of what kind of game they were having, I think you mentioned to me that Thibs deserves a lot of credit. Was it you who messaged me
Yeah,
that
yeah,
Thibs
yeah, yeah, yeah.
deserves a lot of credit for benching Julius Randle for Obi Toppin because Obi Toppin was playing well? Yo, man, anyone who's been on a basketball team knows that when a guy is really going and he's really cooking, and it just so happens that he's playing the same position as, like, one of your better players, that leaving him in is going to build up team chemistry, because it's giving you that transparency of it's fair is fair. Play
Yeah.
well, you stay on the court. And look, when Nick Nurse, initially, I think a couple years ago, when he talked about his overall philosophy, it was simple. guard, and you can do what you want on offense. I think as long as he's stuck to that, I mean, even if I don't agree with it at all,
Yeah,
the offense has been dog shit for 3 years.
yeah, yeah.
But even if I don't agree with it, as long as he stays true to that, it works. But guess what? This year, Pascal and Fred, their defense fell off a cliff.
Yep.
They still got to do whatever the hell they wanted. I think everyone looked around and said, I see. There's one set of rules for us, one set of rules for these two guys. And that did not vibe well. It didn't vibe well with me, watching these guys not be held accountable. And so, you can run out the excuse parade and say, oh well, they're not having as tough a job on defense because, they have to carry our offense because y'all are scrubs. But then I don't think that message resonates either because it's not a very empowering message. And quite frankly, it's not very, I mean, if you're a team looking around, you see Delano Banton put up 27 points and collect a DMPCD in the next game, you're like, there's a cap. There's no point in working. This coach is not going to give you minutes. It's always going to be Fred VanVleet, 38 minutes a night, 39 minutes every single night. I'm not going to, and however he feels that morning, he wakes up, it's just, look, I think lost in all of the Nick Nurse criticism is that Nick Nurse is a very good playoff coach. He is a very smart basketball guy. I get it. He knows a lot about basketball and he's very smart. But sometimes smart is not even the point of being a coach. Sometimes it's about being a good person, having the humility. And I think he sort of lost sight of the humility factor. I think he just got too high on his own supply.
How many times do you think he said, I'm wrong, I made a mistake?
I don't remember. I don't remember one time.
Not for the public.
I don't remember one time.
This team. I shouldn't have drew up that play. I should have played this guy. I made a mistake here. When do you think he's ever said that? This season.
I definitely recall a couple of times. I don't want to cap. Like he's had a couple of ones where he said,
this one was on me.
It's rare though, right? It is rare.
Coaches lose games all the time.
They do. They 100% do. I called that timeout too late. I made a mistake on that coach's challenge. He was so emotionally reactive all season. There are so many times where I disagreed with a particular play that he called after a timeout or a coach's challenge that was completely burned on the wrong type of play, not even a high leverage, high momentum play. His timeouts were sometimes late. He allowed, certain lineups to just had like this terrible chemistry and terrible synergy. If you had told me, like, if the league did an investigation right now into the Raptors and found out that Nick Nurse had secretly sabotaged like 18 games this season, like to try to lose, I wouldn't doubt it for 1 second. It's hard to do
with the challenges, with him ruining bench units that were working. And then he said,
absolutely. You would see a lineup thrive, like a 5-man unit thrive for like 5 minutes and then never see that lineup again for like 5 games. Yeah. And you're like, what the fuck, man? Like, sometimes you overcomplicate things. And again, one of my biggest criticisms of Daryl Morey and Sam Hinkie pretty much the entire way through, I understand smart people. I get it. I'm a pretty smart person myself. So it's taken me a really long time to understand sort of the human side of dealing with people. And it doesn't matter how smart you think you are or how smart you are. At the end of the day, your success in life or failure in life is always going to come down to how well do you deal with people in real people situations. And I don't think that Nick Nurse dealt with people very well. I think there's a lot of evidence to it. I think there's going to be more that comes out. And I think if you are someone who is just looking at this roster and trying to say, well, throw out the baby with the bathwater, I say, hold on, man. Because Masai Ujiri watched this team the same way you did. He watched every single game, same way you did. He met these players. He was inside those locker rooms. He having these player meetings. He did hours and hours and hours of exit interviews, including some like really long ones. And I can tell you that he has a better pulse and he is far more experienced and far more, capable than any of us to make a decision on who he thinks works and doesn't work. But more than anything, I am just excited that we have a president, of basketball operations, vice president, whatever the hell his title is right now. I can remember vice chair, whatever. I'm excited that you have someone in the leadership position who is committed to doing the right thing, calling it out when he sees it. Selfish. We've been a little bit selfish at the deadline. I hadn't heard anyone say that. Did you ever hear Nick Nurse say we were a little selfish tonight?
No.
How many games were we were bitching hour after hour in these lives? Yo, Fred was selfish tonight. Gary was fucking selfish tonight. This was selfish. We never heard that word from Nick Nurse. Never heard it. I
Mm-mm.
don't think I ever heard it. Let me know in the chat, guys, if you ever heard it. I never heard it from him,
And
but I heard it from
another
Masai.
another thing that gives me hope is if you're watching the playoffs, especially in the Eastern Conference,
Mm-hmm.
Milwaukee's down 3-1. They're vulnerable. Embiid's already hurt with the Sixers, like he has an injury. Boston is just lost 2 games in a row. I'm like, there's actually no juggernauts in the East that we thought there were.
There's
There-
no Miami Heat 2011, 2012.
no.
There's no Golden State
And
Warriors
if we were
2016.
who we thought we were, man, we'd be right in it right now. We'd be in the thick of it.
Yeah, I, I still think we get bounced in the
I
first round. I
know,
think
but
that
it
bounce
wasn't
is
going to be last
valuable,
year. It
you
wasn't
know,
going to be
and
last
for a
year.
young team, yeah, for a young team to go through that. And look, like I think Masai Ujiri is a competitive person. Sometimes competition gets the best of you, you know. How many times has a man admitted he was lost an hour later than when he first realized he was lost? It happens all the time, right? We just keep
Yeah,
roaming
yeah.
around. But you know, I try to make a point in my life to not judge people by their worst moments. I don't agree with the decisions that Masai Ujiri's made this year. I didn't agree with the Jakob Turtle trade. I don't agree with a lot of stuff. You know, I don't agree with keeping Fred VanVleet at the trade deadline. I don't agree with, you know, even keeping Pascal Siakam. I wish he'd blown it up 16 times over. But I will 100% support someone who can come out after a season like this and say, you know, this is a disaster. This is the problem, and not sugarcoat it. Not say, oh, we had injuries. No, he cut right through all the bullshit and he said straight up, I have to take my part in this. Nurse has to take his part in this. We were not ourselves. We were selfish. He mentioned selfishness 5 times in his exit interview. We need to rebuild this. We need to rebuild the culture. Everything he said is fact.
Yep.
He didn't lie. I mean, I'm sure there's some selective truths that he did not
Yep.
put out,
Yep.
and there's, you know, certain people that he let off a little bit too easy on that. But yo, I was honestly, the culture of honesty within an organization cannot be understated. I'm happy Masai Ujiri's in charge. I will remind fans that, you know, this is the same guy that a couple years ago y'all were really worried you're going to lose him. You were really worried. Like, I think there were people who genuinely would have traded like 2 first-round picks to keep Masai. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they were just like, oh my God, like you can't lose this guy for anything. And it's just like, what have you done for me lately? And now everyone's just flipped on him, and it's just because he's had a bad year. And it's just, I don't,
But
I genuinely think that even in this bad year, he's done so many good things.
I think the
You know what I
silver
mean?
lining. I think the silver lining of this bad year is his antennas are up,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like no more complacency, no more, you know, championship parade. I'm not saying there was a championship parade until now, but that door is completely closed, and I think we're going to see a major improvement because this year was bad. This year was bad. Like the product
Yeah.
was bad. I mean, Orlando didn't do great, but the product was not bad.
Yeah. I'm
Like
trying
our
to make
product
sense.
was bad.
I agree. I'm trying to make sense of this comment. Masai ain't rocking with you because anyone with eyes can see the traps you're trying to set for a grandmaster. Dead emoji. You're full of shit and being a hypocrite. He took responsibility. Fuck. I guess FOH is fuck out of here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Gemma baller.
He's implying you're saying Masai didn't take accountability.
Oh
I think
man.
he's confusing when we were talking about Nurse with Masai, or is he
Yeah.
talking about? Yeah, I think he's mistaking the two.
I don't know, man. I mean, honestly, I want to spit fire right now because this comment is ridiculous, but I'm in a good mood. So we let this slide and we just tell you, quite frankly, you don't know what you're talking about. It's not what I said at all. So, you know,
So Rob, before I
mhm.
go, it's 75-73 in the beginning of the third. Do the Bucks go home tonight?
Wait, what is it
75-73.
right now?
Yes. Miami's up 2. Do the Bucks go home tonight?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Well, if it gets tight and it's in the fourth
I
quarter.
can't believe I'm not watching it. Is it it's in hold on. Is it it's game 5? Um
It's game five in Milwaukee. If it's a close game, remember the game against the playing game with against
yeah,
the Wolves.
Jimmy not playing, like I mean, I watched that guy miss like 4 point blank layups in the play-in tournament like over and over again, and I'm
Yeah,
just like this is not the Jimmy Butler that I was promised. But it's like again, time and time again, people show you who they are, believe them. That should be the slogan of this channel, and it should be the slogan of my life, and I should wear a shirt that just says when people show you who they are, believe them. Because Jimmy Butler's shown you over and over again that he just shows up for these moments. And I mean,
I know what he's not showing up for. A G League team in Charlotte. I guarantee you that
exactly.
he ain't
And
showing up for that.
exactly. And it's like that's the point, right? That the people just didn't get all year. And it's just like the people who are wrong consistently all year and are now doubling down and trying to be wrong again. It's just like my only request to those people is, yo, do y'all ever get tired of just being wrong? Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, how many times can you be on the wrong side of history before you realize you don't know what the fuck you're doing?
Mm.
Anyways, Coach Mo, always a
Yeah,
pleasure talking to you, man. It's been a long time since we talked, so it was nice to catch up, man.
yeah. Hopefully the
Uh,
Kings stay alive tonight.
yeah, that would be nice. All
Hopefully.
right, peace, man. Have a good one. Alrighty, thank you for rocking with us. This was supposed to be a 20-minute live. It ended up going a little bit longer. We had a guest, so I don't know. This has been a lively debate, but I think it's worth mentioning that Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster have my full support. This front office, they've suffered quite a bit of brain drain. They've got a hell of a lot of work left, in the off season. But the first step to people doing work is identifying the work that must be done. You always look for self-awareness in people, right? So when Scotty Barnes says to you that he needs to work on his conditioning to take it to a new level, that's a person who is understanding his weaknesses and articulating them honestly and clearly. That is a very good quality and a very rare quality in most people. Go talk to most people about how they did today at work. How many of them are going to tell you, yo, I fucked up, I mismanaged my time. I need Most people don't do that. Most people say it was all right because most people live in delusion. And I don't think that people who are delusional end up winning much in life. And I like people who are reflective, who are honest, and who are clear in their intention. I like winners. And Masai Ujiri is a winner. And he talks about winning all the time for a reason, because that's what he's trying to build here. And he's not talking about the winning in the past. He's talking about winning in the future, because that is what it is, right? The Raptors' future. There's a lot of players here that you need to put some respect on their name. I'm telling you, man. You can tell me I'm right next year. Just wait for it. People clowning me saying, "Oh my God, Rob, you were so hyped on Jeff Doughton. He couldn't even get, he couldn't even get his contract converted. You're so hype on, Joe Wieskamp, Christian Coloco, Otto Porter. Yeah, I'm hype on these guys because I believe in them. Because I fucking study basketball. It's my life, and I'm telling you, these guys are good players. They're really good players. They were better than they showed this year. They're better than the opportunities that they got. They deserved more. And I fully agree with Chris Boucher that this team was not managed properly. And trust me, throughout history, you can go down the list. There are tons of examples in all sports where something was happening within the team and everyone underperformed. That's what happened this year. Look at the shooting percentages, all down. It's not like everyone on the team just forgot how to shoot, man. Defense, down. Effort, down. Consistency, down. Blowing late fourth game quarter, issues with referees, getting ejected, infighting between the team, beef at halftime. Every fucking thing that you saw, some beef in practice, right? Listen to Pascal Siakam just talk about it. I mean, the writing was on the wall. If you were paying attention, the writing was on the wall all year. We just got to stay together. At the deadline, we just got to stay together. We got to keep the outside noise out. Who talks like that? A person who is absolutely in a dysfunctional environment. That's what it is. Anyways, have a good one, guys. Have a great night. Thanks for sticking with us through 2 lives. And make sure to hit like. There's 148 of you. I guarantee they're not 148 likes. Get those likes up. All right. Peace. Have a good one.